It's time for today's Lucky Land horoscope with Victoria Cash.
Life's gotten mundane, so shake up the daily routine and be adventurous with a trip to Lucky Land. You know what they say, your chance to win starts with a spin. So go to LuckyLandSlots.com to play over 100 social casino-style games for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Get lucky today at LuckyLandSlots.com.
Available to players in the U.S., excluding Washington and Michigan. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
A 30-strong squad heading to Paris with representatives on the track, road, mountain bike and BMX. British cycling has delivered some of the most iconic Olympic moments, with the hope that their riders can once again inspire at Paris 2024. The team includes world champion sprinter Emma Finucane and reigning Olympic gold medalist Tom Pidcock, who will ride in the road race as well as aiming to retain his mountain bike title. I'm Michael.
And I'm John. Importantly, there's also gender parity in the cyclists selected, and this is the biggest cycling delegation in British Olympic history. And the class of 2024 have pedigree. In terms of overall medals won, Great Britain is the most successful nation in the history of Olympic cycling. This is a Great British Bosses special from Anything But Footy with British cycling. So let's hear from the person tasked with ensuring that the sport continues to deliver those moments that included 12 medals, including 6 golds, in Tokyo.
My name is Stephen Park, and I am the Performance Director for the Great Britain cycling team at British Cycling.
Stephen, great to have you on this summer special edition of Great British Bosses. And I'm just wondering, here we are then on the cusp of another Olympic Games. And I'm wondering, is the excitement there for you as it always has been?
Yeah, I mean, we're a week now to go. We've got lots still ongoing, as you might imagine, in that last week, just bits and pieces coming together. In the big picture, everything's well under control and sorted, but just those final little details. And I suppose you always have a little bit of nervousness, if you like, those butterflies that we'd expect any competitor to have, I suppose. And it's the same with anyone holding any key role for what is such a big event. You know, certainly it's a big event in my life, but I suppose it's the responsibility you have because it's such a big event in an athlete's life where they've invested so much time, effort, blood, sweat and tears, if you like, to compete in biggest peacetime gathering, I should say, of human beings on the planet. So what have we got? 10,500 athletes, 32 sports. We're going to field 30 athletes, which is roughly a tenth of the 327 athletes that will represent Team GB in the 24 sports over the 2 weeks of competition. So it's going to be really exciting. We're really looking forward to it. I think Paris is going to be an absolutely incredible backdrop to what for sure will be a fantastic games. And probably it feels almost like a home games because Paris, for a lot of people, is probably as easy to get to as London is.
When we talk about that home games advantage, though, as a performance director, do you have to just remind your athletes, your 30-strong squad, that actually we are still travelling? It is still slightly different from being at home on that home road or home track or home course?
Yeah, from an athlete perspective, they don't so much see it as a home games, they see it as an away game. The French are very good and well versed in the games and around the gamesmanship of ensuring home advantage. So they've been trying very hard in that space. From our riders' perspective, they race and train all around the world at different times, albeit that we're trying to make sure most of them are in this side of the planet, in this part of Europe, over recent weeks, just to help in terms of the preparation as they go into Paris. But we've got riders in a number of different holding camps and training camps in this last couple of weeks leading into the games. They'll need no reminder that it's the Olympics. They're all very well versed in what's coming up. And they too will be excited about what's to come. But of course, they'll be nervous because fundamentally the Olympic Games is about delivering your very best performance on one day in time. And if you get that right, you come away with the gold medal. And if you don't get that right, then if you're lucky, you might be able to go again in 4 years and see whether you can deliver that performance there. And I suppose that's what makes the Olympics unique. But apart from the fact that it's such a huge global media event, that the amount of pressure involved in delivering that performance on that one day is what makes it unique and stands out from any other World Championships, any continental event. And you have, one day in 4 years to get it right.
Are you nervous?
Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous, but I kind of think that that's quite a good thing, really. I suppose I consider myself only nervous because I'm invested in the performances. I fully recognise that the reality is I'm not pedaling the bikes. My job's about trying to help support the riders to have the very best opportunity for them to realise their potential. And I think we've done a fantastic job of that. But at the end of the day, you know what the potential is that you have of your team. You very much hope that they're going to deliver their very best. But you also know that plenty of people will still look to judge me or the program or some of our key staff by some of those performances. And so that brings with it some pressure, some stress, and some nervousness. But, that's logically, you know what you've done, and we know that we're in a good place. We know that the hard work is done, and that in the main, we're looking really good across all of our Olympic and, in fact, our Paralympic disciplines that will take place in Paris this summer.
Let's talk about you a little bit. I think the start of this interview, you've already suggested how much the Olympic Games means to you. You've already demonstrated, I think, in what you've said, some passion, some enthusiasm. But what does the Games mean to you? What historically has the Games meant to you?
Yeah, I suppose it still feels like at times that you're coming into your first Games, but I've been around this block a few times now, from campaigning as a sailor to try to go to the Games in the years pre-2000, to joining the Olympic sailing program as a coach, to coach in 2 different disciplines. In fact, actually, when we got to Sydney, I actually had days I coached in three different disciplines at the Sydney Games, and then becoming the team leader for sailing for Athens, Beijing, London, and Rio, before joining cycling at the beginning of 2017 and being able to lead the cycling team to Tokyo ultimately in 21, and have the great honor to be able to lead the team again now for Paris. So I suppose the Olympics is pretty much my life, the Olympics and Paralympic Games, and about trying to create that platform for success and to build a team of people that can both develop and support the athletes. And for some athletes, for the very best athletes, I often feel that as long as you don't get in their way, they'll be fine. So you're just trying to clear their way. The real challenges for those, perhaps, when they have those individual hiccups and things don't go quite the way that they'd expect, people develop at different rates, and about how we're able to provide a support structure that helps guide them, keep them on path, give them the confidence to carry on. And perhaps for some people that are maybe, have to work perhaps a little harder in the natural talent space, where we're able to get and support them to a position where they're able to compete for medals. So I very much enjoy that. I enjoy the principles of trying to create a really high supportive culture, but one that is expects very high standards, has huge ambition. It creates, if you like, a high challenge environment, but seeks continuous improvement, and helps develop resilience amongst our athletes. So, and I've been very honoured, if you like, to work with some fantastic athletes across a number of sports over that time.
And how much are the athletes aware of their history and their heritage and what it means to represent Team GB or Paralympics GB at a Games?
I think from a cycling team perspective, and I did a number of cycles with sailing before I came here, and I think with both of those sports, certainly since we moved into the 2000s, both of those sports have flourished incredibly well since the introduction of national lottery funding and the UK Sports World Class Programme. And there's no doubt in both of those programs, but certainly here within Great Britain Cycling Team, that people understand that if you are going to go to games, if you're going to be selected for Team GB to go to the games, fundamentally that means that you have to be medal competitive. The level of competition, the level of performance in the team is such that you need to be medal competitive to be in consideration. And of course, you're going to represent a sport and represent the country in disciplines where we have an incredible legacy that we're seeking to continue. We're the only country in the world that's won Olympic medals in every single one of the Olympic disciplines now. And particularly, I suppose, after Tokyo, where we had some success in the non-track and road disciplines, which historically we have a good legacy in. Those disciplines too coming on very strong in terms of that expectation. So there's no doubt that the riders know what's expected by, if you like, by the public, and they have that feeling of expectation, and they understand the legacy for which, if you like, they're charged to continue. But ultimately, we're very clear about working with them around, they're not things they can control. They need to think about what they can control, not worry about the things that they can't control. And if they think about their own process and what they can control, then they'll deliver their best performance. And ultimately, that's all that anybody asks. We know, I've got this view that on any given day, if you can deliver 50% or more of your realistic medal opportunities in one day, then you're doing well. If you get above 50%, then you're batting above average, if you like. I think in my time in the games, it's a pretty good rule of thumb. And that means that just on any given day, there'll be things that don't go well, People will just get up on the wrong side of the bed. It won't feel good. In cycling, we might say they might just not have the legs today, or it could be that they get a little bit ill. It could be that somebody has a crash or they have some equipment failure. It could be that some other competitor just delivers a performance that is unlike anything we've seen from that athlete ever before, and fundamentally they get beaten. And I suppose that's sport, isn't it? And that's what we love about sport. It's that the sort of jeopardy and the unexpectedness of it. If it was all predictable, then we'd be basic entertainment, wouldn't it? We know what was going on. But the fact that there's some jeopardy involved is what makes it so exciting. And when it's at the very highest level and everyone understands what is at stake, which is the case in the games, which what makes it so thrilling for so many people to watch and to be involved and hopefully be inspired by.
And when you talk about the fact that the teams that you've put together have to be medal competitive, you do need to balance that, don't you, as the performance director, with the human element and make sure that winning is good, but winning right is better.
From an individual's perspective, yeah, we want to win, but we want to win well. We have a number of different sort of principles that we work with, and as you might imagine, a lot of them are around being performance focused and being sort of games first, about being really well prepared and being innovative. But equally important for us to work well together, to share the responsibility, and that whole piece around having real good pride in the jersey, being proud that you are representing yourself, your family, your team, the country. And things like athlete health are very much at the centre of what we do, looking after people both before, during, after, and maybe around other areas, both in their sport and around their other life. And we're very fortunate that we're able to put a support package around athletes that helps them in times where perhaps they're struggling, perhaps they're not struggling, perhaps they've just got an injury or they've got an issue that they just need support with, and to try and make sure we focus on that, but also helping them make the right decisions that allow us to win well.
So as performance director, what are your main roles and responsibilities then?
Well, ultimately, I'm responsible for everything in cycling where Great Britain is represented on the worldwide stage under Great Britain Cycling Team. So that means that all of the coaches, all of the various ologists, whether it's physiologists, psychologists, nutritionists, all our performance analysts, all of our technical equipment staff, they all, one way or another, report into me, if you like. So I'm responsible for that. So my job is to lead our senior leadership team. I'm very fortunate we've got some fantastic staff in that group who then lead each of those different departments. And so we want to make sure that they're focused on the right things at the right time. I'm also involved in the selection of all of those athletes to represent each of those teams. So while we're only a week out from the Olympic Games, we were today, in fact, selecting athletes for the Paralympic Road Cycling World Championships in September. So we have World Championships going on in each one of our disciplines, able-bodied and Paralympic, all the way through the year. So we have a process that we need to select that. There's also a big part to play in terms of the role I play within the Performance Directors Forum and part of the wider UK sport, elite sport environment, working with other performance directors in sport. And of course, as a director of British Cycling, being involved in our executive leadership team and working with the great colleagues that I have here in British Cycling in terms of representing the competitive aspect, if you like, within what is a huge, broad church of the sport of cycling that goes from everything from active travel, right, through sustainability, right through to participation, membership, running events. So just fulfilling all those different roles. So yeah, it's quite wide and varied, while trying to, if you like, maintain a focus on delivering performance at the games and at key events all throughout the cycle.
What are you looking for in terms of a member of your team? Are you just selecting, judging on the data you have in front of you, or is there the opportunity to put someone in a team because of a feeling or a hunch that you might have?
Well, the opportunity is certainly there for us to do that, and we work very well with the coaches in that regard. But, nowadays we try to work very much on a sort of intent-based leadership system. So we're very much trying to empower our coaches in that space around who they think we should be selecting. So they're very much involved in the nomination and the selection process. Yeah, there is without a doubt still opportunities for us to have hunches and support individual athletes. That said, we do use a huge amount of data, and we are looking at lots of past performances, but also training performances and the opportunities that present. And sometimes you just feel that you have a hunch that somebody has got a lot more to give, and then maybe they weren't in the right environment, or the support structure that we had around a particular athlete for a particular time maybe it wasn't right, and we need to shake that up. I suppose one of the examples of that, I suppose it stands out particularly right now as we go towards Paris, was Beth Shriver, who had been on the BMX program before I became the performance director. She'd actually been exited from the program, and I just felt that she just had something about her that meant that she wasn't finished and she had a lot more to give, but the environment wasn't right for her. And so we brought her back on program, and subsequently she went on and won the gold medal in Tokyo, and has won she's won the last 2 world championships, and she's looking fantastic for this coming summer, and is an incredible role model for young women, particularly young women in power sports, which I think we're doing very well in that space at the moment with BMX racing and with women's sprint. But I suppose at the end of the day, there was a degree of a hunch in that regard. Where we've got more definitive performances, where we've got some of our very much our timed events, it's very hard to get past the data, because often that is by far the best predictor of performance, and so therefore they're the events where you've got the most predictable performance on a day. You're obviously looking and analysing your competitors and where they are. They of course are moving as you are, but it means that you have a far better ability for you to be able to predict performance at the games, and therefore in terms of individual athletes, you've got a far better ability to predict performance of individual athletes. But that doesn't mean that they won't necessarily get it right on the day, because ultimately it's a bit different, as we've seen across a number of different sports. When you get to the games, the amount of pressure that individuals athletes feel, some feel huge pressure, and that becomes a real burden for them. Others, by contrast, thrive in that space, and we almost see the very best of them. Better performance outweighs what we see for the remainder of the 4-year cycle. So yeah, again, that shows some excitement for this summer.
And you mentioned Beth Shriver there, and I was just wondering, I've been fortunate enough to go to World Championships, European Championships, Olympic Games, Commonwealth Games in all your disciplines. Is it a difficult challenge perhaps to provide a program for someone who's in the BMX space to someone that's maybe in the road cycling space? Because although it's all cycling, they're actually very different in the way the outlook is perhaps of the athletes.
Well, yes, the different disciplines are very different, and it's possible, but it's different and difficult in some more than others. So, for example, in the road cycling scene, our very best road athletes are going on to pro cycling teams. So effectively, we end up in, if you like, in what most people would recognise as a club and country type discussion that you might have if somebody's playing for Manchester City across the road here and they're being called up to play for England in the forthcoming World Cup. It could well be in that scenario where they're effectively, their job is to play for Man City, but they've got the honour of being selected to represent their country, and so you're trying to work with their pro teams and themselves to get them in the very best position. Where by contrast, some of the other disciplines, like the BMX racing or particularly track sprinting disciplines, they're very much housed within the National Cycling Centre here in Manchester, and so those athletes are in here every day, training away. And everything that they're doing is one way or the other linked to what's going on at Great Britain Cycling Team. And it depends on the different disciplines. So we have, for example, we have Tom Pidcock, he's a pro tour cyclist riding with Ineos Grenadiers. He's been out at the Tour de France for the last couple of weeks, and he's going to ride in the mountain bike for Team GB when we get to Paris, and then hopefully into the road as well. So we're working with Tom closely around trying to put in place the support he needs for the mountain bike program, and we've been doing that for some time, but we're not actively involved in managing his day-to-day programs and his pro tour cycling. His pro tour team have got coaches and support staff that deal with that, so our role is to be able to liaise and form good relationships with those people to be able to ensure we've got everything in place to be able to support him to deliver his best performance. Where by contrast with somebody like a Beth Shriver, Beth's here every day. So we're providing the coaching, we're providing the training environment, physiotherapy, nutrition, positioning work would all be done here on a day-to-day basis. Where with the Tom Pidcock piece, what we're trying to do is supplement and to try and to where maybe the pro team don't have access to a particular area or particular service, or perhaps we can provide some enhancement in those performance areas to help support his performance. So yeah, it's varied across the different disciplines.
Still to come, we'll hear more about the team heading to Paris 2024 with Stephen Park, the performance director from British Cycling. This is Great British Bosses. How pleased were you with the successes that you saw in Tokyo in disciplines like mountain biking with Tom Pidcock, and obviously the tremendous success we saw in both disciplines in BMX as well? Because when we've spoken before, that was part of the strategy, if you like, to try and diversify away from track and road. Yeah,
the cycling, like many Olympic sports, is becoming more and more competitive all around the world. And so, we were in a situation where we were, if you like, regularly winning 8 to 12 medals on the track, but not winning medals in other disciplines. But ultimately, we knew that some of the low-hanging fruit that perhaps we'd be able to take advantage of in some of the in maybe 2012, 2016, the other nations had caught up and had closed the gap there. And so we knew that was going to be tougher than ever to win in those spaces. We also knew, and we were very clear that one of the roles that we play within the sporting system is this piece around inspiration and inspiring through sport people to motivate individuals to have healthy lifestyles. And mountain biking, for example, more people own a mountain bike than own a road bike or a track bike in the UK. And so to try and showcase some of those disciplines and to be able to provide some support in those disciplines so that people can associate what they do with what they can see at the Olympic Games is important to us. So yes, we very definitely provided some additional support in the non-track and road disciplines, without taking anything away from track, I should say. And so now we're in a situation where we go with realistic medal opportunities in each one of the Olympic disciplines now, and we have without a shadow of a doubt, we've got the capability to win in each one of those disciplines. We won't win in each of those disciplines for the reasons that I've outlined already, but we've got a good chance. We've got great performers. We'll have some fantastic role models that will, without doubt, deliver pride in the jersey, be resilient about what they do, and they will inspire youngsters to get out on their bikes and to enjoy cycling.
And obviously the likes of Tom Pidcock, Charlotte Worthington returning to the team this time, but we're also going to see the likes of Kieran Riley, for example, Emma Finucane and Josh Tarling as well across the disciplines as well. So in terms of that 30-strong squad, gender parity this time as well, one of the biggest, or I think the biggest cycling delegation in British Olympic history. How confident are you that they will return with a similar number of medals to Tokyo, or perhaps it build on that?
Yeah, I'm confident that there's no doubt we've got the capability, and so I am confident we'll do well in terms of delivering our target of 10 medals. We have, as you say, 30 riders. We've got 11 medalists going back again. We've got 15 debutantes. We've got 9 other world champions. We have the opportunity to have some fantastic days that, in some of the street sports, as you say, like BMX, freestyle, where we have world champion Kieran Riley, who'll be looking to add Olympic gold. He's going into that event with Charlotte Worthington on the women's side, who won the gold by pulling off that 360 backflip in Tokyo that I'm sure we all remember and was the front page of so many of the newspapers. Again, in BMX racing, we won 2 medals, 1 male, 1 female, gold for the female, silver for the male in the BMX racing, and both Beth and Kai respectively go back again. We've got some fantastic young athletes coming up, like Josh Tarling on the road, who in the men's time trial in particular is really going to be in the mix in what is an incredibly competitive environment. And one of the disciplines that I'm really proud about is the work of our women's sprint program. So Scott Pollock, who's the coach there, has done a fantastic job bringing those riders on, and to get us to a situation where we're going in, having finished our last World Cup event, having won all 3 of the women's sprint events in Hong Kong, team sprint, women's sprint, and the Keirin, with world champion Emma Finucane leading that charge. So we've not actually qualified. Never mind race. We've not qualified in the women's sprint since London, and there's no doubt that created some challenges within British cycling. So to be able to rebuild that program and bring those riders right all the way through to a situation where we're going in as one of the favourites is fantastic. We
are heading towards the end of the time that we've got with you, Stephen, but I did want to ask you about a couple of people that aren't going to be on the team for differing reasons. Laura Kenny, of course, has retired since we saw her in Tokyo, and then what I think we've all described as a bit of a freak injury means no Katie Archibald part of the team, and that must have been a huge loss. And I know that the statement from British Cycling, you obviously pledge your support in every way and any way you can for Katie's recovery.
Yes. Interesting. I saw Katie today, who was in meeting some of our medical support team. We've got a if you like, a wraparound care program around Katie to try and support her recovery, which is going well, and she's in good form and good spirits, I'm pleased to say. And there's no doubt that she's looking to be back on the bike into the winter time for a lot of the track cycling that's going to take place. But clearly, as you would imagine, devastated by the circumstance, and a situation that none of us would have ever imagined. We talk about dealing with lots of the what ifs, but of course most of the time you never think those what ifs are going to actually come true. And here we're a situation where the rider trips over in their garden in the most innocuous of situations, breaks her ankle in 3 different places, and it's been a major injury, which in many other sports would have been career ending. So yeah, terribly disappointing for Katie. not really to have the opportunity to realise her potential when she's at the very top of her game, if you like. She's had a tough few years, but she's an incredibly resilient individual. I've got no doubt that she'll come back, she'll be strong, and she'll be fighting hard in the lineup for LA in 4 years' time. With regards to Laura, of course, well, Laura's going to make up part of the BBC team that are going to be covering the sport, so I'm sure we'll see plenty of Dame Laura Kenny out in Paris. She has been a fantastic ambassador for the sport. She remains a fantastic ambassador for the sport. It will be interesting, I think, for people to see who then steps up, if you like, and becomes the next queen of track cycling moving forward. But we are very, very fortunate, and both of those women, both Laura and Katie, both come from our women's endurance program. And we are fortunate that we're blessed with an embarrassment of riches in that particular discipline. And those women are performing incredibly well. And while, of course, for some riders, one door shuts, for other riders, that means another door opens. And in this instance, that's meant that we've had to reselect in terms of both our road and track disciplines in this instance. But that's meant that other riders, more riders, have ultimately got the opportunity to go to the games, to have the opportunity to realise the potential, the opportunity for them to realise their dreams, and to have an opportunity to chase those very elusive Olympic medals.
Just finally then, what would the Stephen Park, who was training to try and compete at the Olympics in sailing, think of the Stephen Park who's leading the British cycling team into his second successive games? Would he be proud of what you're about to do?
Yeah, very much so. He'd be very proud. And I suppose I look to my daughter, Grace, when I think about that, because like all of the athletes who are in this position, I, like many of our staff, have to make a huge number of sacrifices through our personal lives to try and make sure we can continue to drive the best possible performance advantage. One of the people that suffers in that space is my daughter, Grace. And so I look to her and the feeling of pride that she's got about what I do and how proud she is of me and about what I'm able to do and how I'm able to support our athletes, represent our sport, represent the country, and to be able to show that winning is important. There's a reason to win. It's not just about the actual process of winning. It's about the process of trying to win and about how that makes us stronger, more resilient individuals. I firmly believe that allows our country to be a better place, and to set some fantastic opportunities for people to be role models, to have a real social impact across, whether it's national pride, whether it's well-being, whether it's economic growth. Elite sport fulfills that role by providing those opportunities and showcasing those sports, and it's all about leveraging that elite sport power.
I can't think of a better way to finish. What a great message to leave our listeners with. Stephen Park, Performance Director at British Cycling, thank you for speaking to this special edition of Great British Bosses with British Cycling from Anything But Footy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sports Social Podcast Network.